Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. As we do on Fridays during state legislation, we have a guest who joins us every Friday. That is State Senator Mark Messmer. Senator, we really appreciate you taking the time to come in here.
Great to be here. Always nice to update folks on what's happening at the State House.
Well, there has been, although it seems to have been quiet, there has been a lot of action last week.
This week and next week will probably be our two busiest weeks of the session. Now that all the committees are in full gear, running bills through. I've got my Senate bills that are being heard in the House, this past week and next week, and House bills that I'm sponsoring that are getting heard and passed out of committee. High rate of speed of things happening right now.
And a lot of that, you got to get that out of the way because now you got to work on the budget.
Yep.
Before the year's over.
Oh yeah, the Appropriations Committee, they're meeting and they have hearings every week on different agencies coming in and talking on budget requests, and that group meets. They meet probably multiple times a week right now, getting all of the analysis process done, and then we'll vote on our version of the budget about April 15th roughly, and then the last couple weeks it'll go, it'll be conference committee time, for all bills, and that's where they'll really hammer out the House and Senate priorities on budget changes. That takes up till the last bill of the last day of session is typically the budget.
A lot of bills passed either the House or the Senate this week. Right? Well, and we'll be talking about bills that passed or had some action in the Senate.
Yep, House bills that passed in the Senate this week. We had 32 bills up for final passage. And of those, none of them were significantly changed as they left the House. A lot of times it's just cleaning up things that weren't quite caught. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 committee hearings and that process to get everything tweaked in. But of those 32 bills, I'm certain some of them had no amendments and they'll go straight to the governor. And some of them, will have to go back to the House if they have even just one word added. If you add the word or and, you got to go back and vote on the bill again. And so of those 32 bills, some of the ones that I thought were interesting, that a lot of them are just code cleanup, issues and very agency bills that, update things for compliance with federal laws. But of the ones we passed that I thought were, they catch my eye as we're going through the final presentation. We talk about the opioid crisis in the state and in the nation, people addicted to opioids, and you wouldn't think that people would go to their veterinarian to get a painkiller for their animal following maybe some surgical treatment or whatever, and then not give them to Fido but take them themselves.
No, I would not have thought of that. I guess people who are dependent upon that though really are creative.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, we hadn't thought of that either, but that became, through the veterinarians folks, that became a point of concern of theirs that, hey, how do we know the dog or the cat is getting this or, the person's taking it? So Senate bill or House Bill 1295 passed unanimously, requires veterinarians before they, when they prescribe a opioid for an animal, they've got to go through the same criteria that a person going to the doctor, the same 7-day limit, the same instant, whenever you log that prescription in, you have to check, is this adult patient, taking them already? So it throws that data into the opioid data, monitoring system, just as if you were a human going to your regular MD. You wouldn't think it'd be a possibility, but obviously it's happening.
Yes.
Yes. A bill that came from the Gaming Commission was a charity gaming update, and my first year that I came into the House after getting elected in 2008, the Gaming Commission had done a pretty big overhaul, because before the Department of Revenue enforced charity gaming, and in 2006, 2007, the Gaming Commission took over charity gaming and put together rules that were, in many cases, just totally unmanageable. If you were a worker at a charity event, you couldn't participate in any gaming events, at the entire event, if you just worked 1 hour. At selling quilt tickets, you couldn't buy a ticket for anything the whole day. I mean, just a lot of things that were just impractical. And I had a pretty significant, gaming bill that I passed in 2009, or my language got amended into another person's bill, but to fix some of the charity gaming issues, and had pretty well for 2 or 3 years, hey, we missed this, what about this? And, trying to fine tune, but it was still kind of a cobbled up, not very functional for most people just wanting, even if you just wanted to raffle off, a bike, for a fundraiser for your DI team. I mean, just the most piddly thing, it was quite a large number of hoops to run through. So the agency said, we're going to rewrite this bill, and people that are doing small level raffles, instead of it being $1,000, prize limit, they raised it to $3,000. I mean, and made it, really streamline things to make applying for charity gaming licenses, the fees associated with it, much easier, less cumbersome, and really are treating charity gaming folks as they should be, nonprofit charitable organizations. The director of the Gaming Commission in 2006 viewed charity gaming events as professional gaming, casinos. I mean, they looked at it from that lens, and it was just ridiculous. So they came back this year and said, we probably need to just, restructure this and make it more workable. That bill passed. It wasn't unanimous. We had a couple of people that just don't vote for anything, whether it's charity gaming or, casino gaming. We had a few no votes, but, 45-5, something in that range. House Bill 1517 passed. No changes in the House, no changes in the Senate. That'll go straight to the governor's desk. Changing the school superintendent from elected to appointed, we actually passed that law 2 years ago, and it was supposed to go into effect, after the 2020 election, when our current superintendent, would have been able to run for re-election. She announced last year, I'm not running in 2020, so moving that date up to, to now, to where here going forward, and I think like 39 of the 50 states have appointed superintendents. So I mean, it really, for consistency, if they're supposed to be basic, then they're basically a bureaucratic operation. They're not a policy office. The governor's policy, the legislature actually, we write the policy. The governor is responsible, as any executive agency, of carrying that policy out, and why not have that person be somebody who agrees with the governor, whether it's Democrat or Republican. You at least want to have consistency in that office and how to carry out the duties. So that passed by, I think, a 38-11 vote this week. People say, why do people always say, why do you guys have to meet? Why do why the need to keep updating laws, or and I say, well, there's a lot of times it's technology changes that require new laws. So years ago, and there was debate for years on how do you regulate mopeds? A lot of teenagers, before they have the license, or people who have lost their license and need transportation to work. Little gas-powered 50cc mopeds have been around since I was a kid, and we've kind of got those into a spot where you can once you're 15 you can legally drive them. If you're under 18, wear a helmet. Well, sometime in the past year or two, electric mopeds have become the new technology on the market. Go just as fast as a gas-powered moped, but they weren't regulated in code. Why do we have to keep coming up with new laws to pull stuff like that? I mean, something that can go 28 miles an hour, like a regular, electric moped that can go that fast. We called it electric bikes, and a lot of the same criteria that we put in place over the years on rules for mopeds all fall into place for electric scooters, electric powered bikes that can go the same speed as a moped. So that one passed. I think there might have been a couple of no votes against it, but that was House Bill 1236. And an issue that, just to help The veterans associations collect data on veterans and veterans' surviving spouses. House Bill 1268, when you go in to renew your license, as part of your, the questionnaire that you fill out, you'll have a box to check: are you a veteran? Are you the spouse of a surviving veteran? And then that data can be fed back to the veteran service agencies, because many times they don't know. If a veteran hasn't called the VA office to get help on something, there's no way to know, who's a veteran, who's a spouse of a surviving veteran, and no way to help, guide them to help if they need it, or let them know what services are available. That passed unanimously, no changes in the House or Senate, so that'll go straight to the governor. A bill that I've got up for final passage on Monday, a bill that I filed 3 different times, twice in the House and once my first year in the Senate, dealing with data centers. And you say, what's a data center? These are usually, $100 million, $500 million, $1 billion, large, sometimes, a small one would be a 100,000 square foot warehouse filled with computer server equipment. And sometimes it's for off-site storage for people that do medical records retention. Banks, financial institutions have off-site storage, backup, data for their equipment. Companies like Facebook, Google, Amazon, have places like that are, billion-dollar operations. And Facebook's looking at locating one, trying to locate one in Indiana. They've got 3 sites they're looking at. And there's actually one right now, 100,000 square foot, the first 40 million of it being built up near Lake County area, up in that corner of the state where there's a large fiber backbone network in place, to primarily serve people in Chicago. But that bill would not charge sales tax on the computer equipment within the main data center building. And people say, well, what's the advantage of that? Well, these jobs that it takes to run these and maintain these are, $100,000 plus jobs, high technology jobs, require a lot of support, and people that, once you have the data center, the ancillary, businesses that pop up around that use that are required. That place like that might have 100 employees, but they'll have, maybe 300 to 400 contract employees that come in and out every day. So that bill finally passed the House this year. I filed it in 2013, 2014 in the House. Couldn't get it past our budget guys. Filed it in 2015. Got it out of Tax and Fiscal. Got sent to the budget guys. Couldn't get away. And they kept saying, well, we don't want to give up the sales tax. Well, 7% of zero is zero. And the states that don't charge sales tax, Virginia, North Carolina, Iowa, have tens of billions of dollars of these facilities built in their states. And to get even a sniff at these projects, you've got to take the sales tax off that computer equipment, or you're not even in the game. So,
and the income then would come through the ancillary businesses.
The
income tax.
Income tax, property tax. The electricity that these companies, that these businesses use, the construction to build them. It's
the revenue comes in that way.
The revenue comes in other ways. We give up the sales tax. We benefit from billions of dollars of other activity. The fact that we've got one that could go from a $40 million starter to a $500 million operation, once this bill passes, and Facebook bring in probably $1 billion operation, to our state. Once this passes the Senate Monday, there'll be people lined up, ready to go. Now, we did some slight tweaking to it, but I worked hand in hand with the House author to make to get the changes that everybody agreed needed to happen, and we get this bill passed on Monday. They'll have to concur to it, later next week or the following week, and then off to the governor. And this would be the biggest economic development bill that we'll deal with this year in the General Assembly. Okay. So pretty exciting. And I said, I'd like to say the 3rd time's a charm, but I'll say the 4th time's a charm.
Good. You'll take it that way.
I'll take it.
Okay. Did you want to talk about 2 more bills?
Well, I had 2 bills that I authored that passed the House, one unanimously, one nearly unanimously. Senate Bill 551 was my Victims of Crimes bill, It had a technical change. We went from one of the provisions dealt with, it should have said victims 13 and under, but it said under 13. So we had to change the 13 and under 13 to 13 and under.
Okay.
We'll concur to that on Monday. And my Senate Bill 459 dealing with the Defense Task Force. And that ended up with about 40 co-authors in the House. That passed unanimously. And that one, LSA just found a couple of typos, in the bill when they got it, and we did some minor corrections to that. So those will both be up for final passage in the Senate on Monday, and then off to the governor.
Well, we'll have you come in again next week
Super.
and kind of wrap us up again.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much,
You're
Senator,
welcome.
for coming
My
in.
pleasure. Thank you.
Our guest has been State Senator Mark Messmer, talking about what happened this week in legislation on the Senate side. Thank you for watching WJTS. We are local people watching local people.